The book of Romans consists of 16 chapters, and what we're going to do is to talk about the book of Romans at about a chapter a week. Now, we won't succeed in doing that. Our sessions on the book of Romans will continue more than 16 weeks, but we're going to keep that in mind as a sort of goal. We're going to try to keep ourselves somewhat within that range. That means that it should not take 160 weeks for us to go through the book of Romans, but it might very well take us 20, 25 weeks, something like that, if we get bogged down. But we want to deal with the book of Romans as a totality in the course of our sessions this year. Today, I want to do two things. First of all, I want to talk with you about the influence of the book of Romans, what the book of Romans has done for people through church history, so that you can see the tremendous importance and centrality of this book to Christian faith. And I think you'll get such a wonderful shot in the arm from hearing the effect of this book that this will give you great incentive to study it with me. And then we're going to go into the major structure of the book so that we can see the book as a totality, so that we can get the larger operation of the book before us and have that as a background for going into the particulars. One of the great dangers of Bible study is losing sight of the forest for the trees. In Bible study, how often we get down to each individual verse, one after the other, and we lose sight of what this is endeavoring to say in the large. And I think that's one of the reasons why Bible study is often so boring. People don't want to engage in it, because there seems to be this squeezing of everything out of one verse. Each verse, each word is inerrantly given by God. This stuff is not just the cute religious opinions of the Israelites, or something that they picked up from other people, or a reflection of the belief structures of early Christianity, or any of that jazz. It happens to be the very Word of God. Every word is important. But the fact that every word is important doesn't mean that you can dismember it and deal with it in isolated segments. The Lord not only gave you the individual words, He gave you those individual words in sentences, and those sentences in paragraphs, and those paragraphs in larger units, so that what we have here is something that needs to be understood in its totality, so that we have the right perspective on it. The influence of the book of Romans. The Reformation, the restoration of the gospel in the 16th century, came about very largely because of the book of Romans. It was the book of Romans which made plain to Martin Luther that we are saved not by what we do, but by what God has already done for us. Luther had been deeply troubled by his own sins. He had tried all the techniques that the Roman Church gave him to take care of his sins. He had flagellated his body in the monastery. He had gone upon pilgrimages. He confessed until he drove his confessor von Staupitz nearly out of his mind. Every time von Staupitz turned around, there was Luther with a new confession. And von Staupitz said, "Look, Luther, please, enough is enough." And Luther said, "But if I forget even the tiniest sin that I have committed, and I don't ask forgiveness for it, I won't get absolution, and that sin will condemn me, and where will I be?" Luther tried everything, and then von Staupitz made his worst mistake, or his best decision, depending upon your viewpoint. Von Staupitz said, "The trouble with this fellow is he's got too much time in his hands. He ought to take a doctor's degree. If he takes a doctor's degree, he'll be so occupied he won't be able to worry about his sins." And in general, that's a pretty fair evaluation. The people who've taken their doctor's degrees over the centuries have not worried much about their sins, at least during the time they've been taking the doctor's degree. So in principle, von Staupitz had a point, but he said, what Luther ought to do is to take the hardest doctor's degree that we have available, the doctorate in the sacred scriptures. So, what did Luther
Sample complete. Ready to continue?